Greetings, fellow Earthlings. I'm Tori Licious, and welcome to this tiny garage. Is it this tiny garage? Why can't I do it?
You can totally do it.
This tiny garage.
This one here.
I just want to, I guess, be perverted and say his tiny garage, but technically I would be the one with the garage and you would be the one with the car parking in my garage.
Wow.
But we're not.
Back there emotionally.
Tell me about it.
All right.
Okay.
Then. Action.
Greetings, fellow Earthlings. I'm Tori Licious, and welcome to this tiny garage.
Last week we had some good news. We got to install the pistons into bank 1 and we got to use this mystery tool for the first time, and it actually makes some sense. The bad news is, and I know this from you helpful subscribers out there, is that bank 2 is next, and bank 2 is much more challenging. And actually, speaking of subscribers, I would like to say a special thank you to subscriber Daniel Lee in San Pedro, California, for apparently decking out his entire family with Man in a Garage merchandise from our new merch store. Thank you, Daniel, for being so generous. I did make you one of those Porsche special tools, this actual one here. I'll stick that in the mail to you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's get on with it. Bank 2, the hardness.
Bank 2 cleaning. There is a lot of cleaning in engine rebuilding, folks. Here is bank 2 at the car wash before it got cleaned. Pretty dirty looking. A defining characteristic of bank 2 is that oil filter thread you can see there. Check out episode 32 if you want to see this process in more detail. Here is the end result, and we are ready to move on.
I mean it. Hit that subscribe button.
Coolant cover plate. Now, the only reason I know it's called that is because I typed the number that's stamped on the front of it into the Google and it told me. The remnants of the old gasket do need to come off, but in this case, the plastic trim tool does not really do anything. We had to use the 3M scuff pad with the brake cleaner. With a generous dose of elbow grease, it came up quite nicely. The plate itself still has the gasket on it. It's so fused onto the metal that I wasn't sure it really was a gasket. And thankfully that did come in the gasket kit that we got. These gaskets are kind of like a thick cardboard with a bendy metal wire inside. Then cleaning the other side of that cover plate as well. Many hours later. Then the bolts as well. I'm not going to be replacing bolts like this that don't really have a very difficult life. I'm just going to clean them up. It just takes a few seconds with the wire brush, so why not? Then I was worried that I might put this gasket on the wrong way round, but the way that they orient those tabs, it's not possible to put it the wrong way. It will only fit one orientation. These bolts are 10 millimeters. And then in some of the photocopies that you wonderful people have been sending me, it says that the case bolts, the ones that hold the case together, are 13 Newton meters. Those bolts are very similar to these bolts, so I'm going to do 13 Newton meters for these bolts also.
Hit the notification bell. It's up there.
Yes, please. Oil cooler O-rings. Cleaning. On top of the engine on the passenger side normally sits a little metal oil cooler on top of these 4 O-rings. You can see that one I'm working on there. I presume that means that it was leaking or about to leak. That one is the trouble child for sure. Unfortunately, the O-rings for the oil cooler were not part of the gasket kit, so I did have to go to the Porsche dealer and pick up a set of these, though I'm not going to install them until we actually install the oil cooler, because I don't want them to fall off and I don't want them to get damaged. Vacuum reservoir gasket. This is part of the vacuum system that I don't fully understand yet. It attaches on both sides of the engine. It uses this little metal gasket to seal somehow. So I'm just cleaning up the area underneath there, and I was thinking that was all there was to it. But then I happened to notice when doing some of that spraying that it comes out there and goes into the cylinder head, which I thought was interesting. And then I sprayed the spray the opposite direction, and oh my crikey, I was not done yet. More cleaning. So it seems to be just a build-up of oil in there from presumably air flowing through that is laden with oil particles. It took longer than expected, but that area now is nice and clean with a new gasket ready to go. Bank 2 piston installation. Don't get too excited yet, folks. We are taking off this inspection cap, perhaps. I'm not sure what the real name of it is. I took that off using this huge Allen wrench socket and a combination of 3/8 inch paraphernalia. And there's this little cap that goes in there. It has what seems to be an aluminum crush washer. Kind of dirty. Here is that crush washer, and we did have a new one of those in the gasket kit we got. Yay! After a bit of a cleaning up with the wire brush and the Scotch-Brite, that's what that plug looked like with its new crush washer. We're good to go. Now, this is what I'm talking about. When we put the pistons into Bank 2, we're going to have to do this kind of operation with our fancy tool to put in the wrist pins and circlips. And so while the engine was open, I wanted to show you and me what was going on and see if we're going to have any issues. And there's an issue. It got stuck immediately. That's the little extra piece of the pipe that you fit the circlip into, and that definitely needs to be able to go in. So those holes are just a little bit tight. I started off just by trying to clean them up. More cleaning. And then also the circlip holder as well. I cleaned that up, kind of took a lot of the paint off. And then we'll try that again. So it got stuck again, but maybe not as stuck. So this time I went a little crazier with the wire brush and the scuff pad. Basically took it down to the metal. Try that. And that seemed to be getting it. Thankfully, that's as far as it needs to be able to go. We could put the wrist pin in and then put the circlip in as well. But that piece of metal is supposed to come out with the other pipe. Here I'm testing that in case that does happen when the halves are together, could I fish it out? And it seems like, yes, I'll be very stressed out and grumpy about it, but I could probably manage it. You just need to be able to get it to the next cylinder to be able to fish it out. All right, so here I'm putting more of this metal duct tape that has many uses just to increase the friction on the end of that pipe and hopefully hold that extra piece that I'm referring to as the flange, probably the wrong name. Then for a little bit of extra help, of course, our friend WD-40, just to make it a little more willing to slip through. And that was the magic. Really, at the beginning there, it gets stuck if the angle is wrong, but that seems to be the answer. I think that will work. This also came in the kit. I understand that this is to help you line up the pistons and everything before you put the wrist pins and circlips in. This top tip came from subscriber Ken Cross in Florida. Thank you, Ken. And so what we're using here is the inner core of some bog roll, which is a colloquialism from my youth, but really paper towel or any of that kind of thing, to hold these conrods in the up position so that when we're putting the engine half on top, that the conrods don't flop to one side and get in the way. All right, it's time to remove the tape that we put on the coolant passages. This tape is just holding the gaskets in place while our Sealant 5900 was drying. Next then is more flange sealant. Unfortunately, Tori is not here to assist with this one. You're going to have to put up with my knobbly knees instead. We're just doing a thin, continuous bead across all these mating surfaces to keep the oil where it's supposed to be. And then using that same flange sealant on the engine halves as well. The Bentley manual and Pelican parts recommend that you use the Loctite 5900 sealant for the engine halves, and I did buy some to use for that purpose, but it's very difficult to squeeze it out of the container. Now, Lee Jenkins at Hartech UK said that you can use Loctite 574 for the same thing. By comparison, the Loctite 574 flange sealant is much easier to apply, and so given the choice, that's definitely the one that I would go for. Thank you, Lee. The moment of truth has arrived. Thankfully, a call out to the neighborhood rustled up a willing, though camera-shy, helper. There, I'm just threading the chain through that I'd put on a stiff wire. Right there, we had a bog roll failure, and we had to take a second to move one of the conrods back into a central position. Now just lowering again with the chain, and that was pretty much it. It went more or less straight into position. Then some generous whacking with the rubber hammer. P.S. You don't need any flange sealant in that area. Then we need to put in the bolts, giving them a bit of a clean as well. I'll save you all the other ones. I cleaned all the bolts, but I'm not going to show you all of them. All right, just putting the bolts in the various areas. Taking off those gloves. Those are to stop those pokey bits from poking me and also poking the back of the car. I'm not torquing any of these down yet because of this. The IMS hasn't lined up, and that could be a problem. I was told, hey, just put the flange into it and then kind of pull it into position and you should be good. But this IMS flange is for the fancy direct oil feed from Toon RS Motorsports. So we need to cut space for our oil feed. I'm a little scared. There is going to be metal shavings here, which is not good news for an engine. Therefore, I am taking a few precautions to try to keep everything metal shaving free. So I covered the whole thing with plastic there. I'm also going to stick some paper towel in there to stop the metal shavings flying around. Next up, we're going to cut 2 slices into our beautiful Porsche engine with an angle grinder. Watch out. Then using some vice grips, clamping down on that and relying on old metal fatigue to get that, very easy. I was actually surprised it came off that easy. Then using the angle grinder to kind of clean that up. I think I made it better. And then a hand file. That worked really well on the aluminum. It's easy to file aluminum, who knew? Almost as easy as aluminium. Then, of course, vacuuming out all of the metal shavings and removing all the various protective coverings. Now, here we go. I think the IMS is too far to the right, but I've been told you can pull it into position with screwdrivers. Though I know now, and it might be dawning on those of you who understand what's going on here, is that it's not going to move far enough. Something's going on. There's no way it's going to move far enough. The IMS flange is not going to fit. Oh no!
Well, I guess that's not the happy ending that I was hoping for. I suppose Bank 2 really is much more challenging. What do you all think is going on here? Why is my IMS chain not long enough? What's it snagged on? How do I fix that? Do I need to take the halves apart? Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas. I'd love to try to figure that out right now, but unfortunately, that is all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time.